Hello everyone! Xavius' story begins over 10,000 years ago, where he was the High Counselor to Queen Sargeras, leader of the Night Elves. The Highborn, the upper class within the Night Elf society, they were dabbling with powers, magic beyond their understanding. Xavius was the highest of the Highborn, a powerful caster, and he replaced his eyes with artificial orbs. They were now magical eyes with streaks of ruby darted across the ebony lenses, able to see much more than regular eyes could see. The Highborn had tapped into the Well of Eternity, a great fountain of power, and this drew the attention of the Burning Legion and their dark titanic leader, Sargeras. It was Xavius who made first contact with Sargeras, and he eagerly showed his queen what they had accomplished. One glance into their portal, and the queen herself, not easily impressed, she gasped at the god that was waiting on the other side. The Queen, Xavius, and the Highborn with them, they wanted to have the power to cleanse the land of imperfection and create a perfect paradise. With the coming of Sargeras and the Legion, they thought that they had found just that, the means to create their paradise. If that meant that the unworthy had to perish first, so be it. So they worked even harder on empowering the portal and making it ready for the new god to enter the world. This did not happen instantly, of course. To bring a being like Sargeras into the world required a portal with great power. And to help the Night Elves with their task, Sargeras sent one of his minions to aid them. This minion, this being, was known as Xavius the Houndmaster, who did his best to strengthen their spell work, allowing the Highborn to summon more demons from the Legion into the world. Yet even his skills were not good enough to get Sargeras across. They were able to amplify the portal and get some of the first demons onto Azeroth, 4 Fel guards, which Xavius wisely gave to the queen as a gift to be her personal guard. He understood that pleasing their queen, keeping them on her good side, was a very wise thing, and Sargeras was very pleased with the gift, yet she was disappointed that only so few had crossed in such a large time. How would their Great One himself come through if all they could manage was but a few of the host at a time? Xavius explained that they were drawing from the well as best as they could, but there were outside influences, others drawing from the well's power, to which the queen asked why they simply didn't cut the well from the outside. Enable it to only feed their desires, and Xavius had no counter-arguments. Such a simple thing to suggest. Sargeras was not the queen without reason, and Xavius desired her, like most of the people did, but he desired her on his own terms and not hers. He was certain that once his lord Sargeras had come into the world, the queen would become his, yet the queen saw herself as Sargeras' consort. Regardless of their ambitions, their own individual plans for the future, Xavius and Xavius, they did their very best to seal the well, but they were unable. They simply did not have the knowledge or power to make it happen, so Xavius knew that it was time to ask their master what to do. When Xavius spoke with Sargeras, he explained that they had failed to cut the well and strengthen the portal. He felt an overwhelming, insane fury quickly pass through his mind. It only lasted for an instant though, so Xavius thought that he imagined it, and he listened to his god's words. Another was needed to help out the Highborn, since Xavius had failed in his duties. They used their powers to hold the portal steady, as the massive being known as Manaroth placed his feet upon the world. Under his guidance, they were finally able to cut the well entirely, which had devastating effects on the rest of the Night Elf population. Magic was such a huge part of their lives. Even those who did not cast spells themselves, they were strengthened by the well, and all around their lands, people felt the effects. Even worse, with the powers of the well now exclusive to their spell work, more and more demons poured out of the portal, and they started the groundwork of purifying the world to make it perfect. At least, that's how Sargeras and her followers saw it. For those not in on their plans, it was carnage. Civilians, moon guards, soldiers, none were spared the Legion's wrath as they marched out of the palace. News of this reached Blackrook Hold and its lord Kurtalas Ravencrest. They realized that a great evil was marching through their world, its source in the palace, but their devotion and their love for their queen made it impossible to think that she was in on this. Surely the queen had been captured by that evil Xavius and his Highborn, always thinking themselves better than the rest of them. No, surely not their queen. She had to be rescued, so a resistance was formed.
High Guard, to arms! For your queen! For Sargeras!
There was another who had already sensed the wrongness of what was going on at the palace even before they shut the well and the demons marched out. Young Malfurion Stormrage had been learning the ways of the druid from the demigod Sargeras, and he had reoccurring nightmares about the palace. Through the Emerald Dream, he was able to investigate the situation. He sensed the evil that lurked within the portal, and he knew that his best chance of reopening the well was by entering the dream going to the palace and undo their spell work. His plans worked for the most part. The palace was not guarded for one in the Emerald Dream, and none of the demons or spellcasters present were able to see him. To Malfurion, the Highborn appeared driven beyond sanity, with a hungry look to them. He also gazed within their creation, and he felt the evil that was lurking within. He could not understand that the Highborn didn't sense it. When he turned around, he gazed directly into the face of Lord Xavius with his artificial magical eyes. For a moment, he thought that the counselor could see him, but of course that was only in his head. The counselor walked through him as if he wasn't even there, and Malfurion focused his attention on the shield that they had created, the spellwork that prevented others from tapping into the well. He saw how the magic worked, how it could be manipulated and nullified. That is, if he could do anything in his dream form. To test this out, he called upon the air and wind to create a small breeze, and he was successful. This meant that he could actually do something against their shield, against their spell work. Was it not for the counselor, who in a cold voice said, "A foolish thing to attempt." Lord Xavius was able to see Malfurion's dream form, and he captured it within a narrow white crystal. He wondered out loud how long it would take for Malfurion's body to die without a spirit in it. He was more than eager to find out, so Malfurion was kept as a prisoner, while people like Tyrande Whisperwind and Broxigar, they watched over his physical body for 3 days. In the meantime, the Knight of Resistance fought valiantly against the Burning Legion, but without the powers from the well, they stood little chance. Malfurion had done all he could to break out of his little prison, yet he found no way to do it. It wasn't until the Red Dragon Corialstras, also known as Cressus, he found Tyrande and Brox, and he made contact with Malfurion's spirits. The Red Dragon was an experienced caster himself, a very powerful being, and he showed Malfurion where the spellwork inside the crystal was weak. A small imperfection, combined with Cressus' knowledge and Malfurion opening his mind to allow Tyrande and Cressus to aid him, this allowed the druid to escape. Cressus told the druid to return to them, to return to his physical body. Tyrande pleaded for him to come back, but Malfurion had to finish what he started. He drifted to the spell matrix, reached in with his powers and altered it. He summoned the powers of the world, of nature itself to aid him, and the shield spell faltered, but it didn't break. Xavius instantly sensed that something was wrong, and his dark eyes fixed on the ghostly intruder. Bolts of crimson lightning were shot at Malfurion, but he raised his hand, asking the wind for its aid, and a wall not only guarded him from the attack, it also shot the bolts back, striking the huge warriors near the portal. Remember that nobody else could see Malfurion, only Xavius was able to fight him, and he tried to capture Malfurion again. This time, the young druid was more prepared, and he placed himself between one of the demons and the crystal, causing it to suck in the demon instead. The spellcasters around the portal asked Xavius if they should help, but he told them to do nothing, to focus their attention on the portal, as he would deal with the intruder. The intruder Malfurion had no intention of waiting around. He floated out of the chamber, with a furious Xavius quickly going after him, but instead of going downstairs, Malfurion had floated into one of the inner walls, and he waited for Xavius to pause. He quickly returned to the inner chamber, mind focused on his mission, but deep from within the portal came a terrible voice telling him to not touch the shield, that he had no desire to do so, only the desire to serve Sargeras. It took nearly everything Malfurion had, but he was able to tear away his gaze, and with it, he felt the fury emanate from the portal. This moment did give Xavius enough time to return to the chamber and continue their fight. The counselor was a gifted sorcerer with the powers of the well and even a distant Sargeras to draw from, but Malfurion did not stand alone. In his mind, the voice of Cressus returned. He could once again feel him and Tyrande aiding him, but now even Broxigar added his powers to the mix. Cressus told him that Malfurion was a druid, the first of his kind, with the powers of nature, the world of Azeroth itself to tap into. Rise up, Cressus urged him. Rise up and do what must be done. The epic battle between Xavius and Malfurion came to an end once the druid shot him down with the power of the world itself. Lightning from the sky struck the sorcerer again and again and again, burning him from within and without. Xavius seemed to melt before the younger Night Elf's eyes, flesh and muscle sloshing off, and yet the counselor still strained to reach him. Then thunder cracked again so loud it shook Malfurion himself to his very being, and Lord Xavius, counselor to the Queen and highest of the Highborn, shattered After this, Malfurion was able to unshield the Well of Eternity, opening it up to all others again, and he was able to shut down the portal from which the Legion was pouring. This, however, didn't sit well with Sargeras. From deep below, he tried to capture Malfurion's incorporeal spirit to punish the Night Elf who dared to defy him. Luckily for Malfurion, his teacher Cenarius was able to save him before Sargeras dragged him down. With the Well of Eternity reopened, his people now had the strength they needed to fight back against the Legion. The day seems to be won, but Sargeras' agents knew the price of failure, so they worked on reopening the portal and re-establishing a link with their master. The War of the Ancients was far from over, and even Lord Xavius had yet a part to play. Even though the lightning had shattered his body, ended his life, causing him unbearable pain, the sensation Xavius now felt within the care of Sargeras could not compare. He had no body, no substance, but calling him a spirit was also not the right word. He was nothing, and yet he knew he existed because of the suffering he endured. Eventually, Sargeras had enough of torturing him for his failure, and he decided to give Xavius a second chance. I have decided to redeem you. I have decided that there is a place for you. I have looked into the darkness within you and found that which once pleased me. I make it the core of what you are to become, and in doing so make you a far superior servant than you were. You must be reshaped, but so that others will mark in you the glory I give and the punishment I mete out. I return that by which they will know you best. Xavius was reformed by Sargeras, giving him a new body, yet also making sure that they would definitely recognize who he was by giving back his artificial eyes. Once a counselor to Queen Azora, now the being that emerged from the reopened portal was so much more. Xavius had become the first of the satyrs, with the mission of turning more into him, as well as bringing the one that had closed the portal and angered Sargeras greatly, so that the Dark Lord could have his revenge. From the shadows, the former Highborn worked on his schemes, and despite most fearing him at first, they could not ignore the great gifts that were bestowed upon him. A Highborn by the name of Pedopharn was one of the first to fall to the darkness, as he willingly embraced the transformation into a satyr. This transformation caused him great agony, similar pain to what Xavius had felt. The screams became sobs, but even they did not disturb the satyr's dark work, no matter how loud they too eventually became. Yes, Xavius said, with a gleam in his unholy orbs. Unleash the pain, unleash the fury, no one beyond this chamber will hear. You may scream as much as you like, just as I did. His grin grew savage, animalistic. It is little enough to suffer for the glory of Sargeras. More and more of the Highborn were transformed as the battle for dominance over Kalimdor continued. More and more demons as well, now under the leadership of Archimonde, they poured out of the portal as the world did its best to push them back. Xavius wasn't at the forefront of the war though. He much preferred to work from the shadows, observing and whispering. He eventually figured out the best way to not only capture Malfurion, but also get sweet revenge. No one is untouchable, and the two things that Malfurion loved most in life were his twin brother Illidan Stormrage and Tyrande Whisperwind. There was a love triangle going on between Malfurion, Tyrande and Illidan. Illidan had worked very hard on trying to become what he saw as worthy of Tyrande's love, but sadly for him, Tyrande had already made her choice. She had given her heart to his twin brother, and this caused Illidan great pain. Pain which Xavius could work with. He whispered into Illidan's mind how the situation could be different. Accidents happen, no one would be to blame, many die in a war. What could be if something would happen to Illidan's twin? Surely Tyrande would come to him if there was no more Malfurion. Illidan was fascinated by his perverse thoughts, but soon enough he regained control and he growled. Never. Not my brother, never! He walked away, and from the shadows, Xavius chuckled. The groundwork was laid, and Illidan himself would build upon it. Now Xavius' second target was Tyrande Whisperwind. She was struck hard during the battle with the Legion, and Malfurion had carried her away to a part of the forest where she could recover. The druid sensed that they were being watched, and to his shock and surprise, Xavius had returned from the dead. His body now altered, but a face that still haunted Malfurion's nightmares, and eyes that he could never forget. More satyrs emerged from the shadows, grabbing Malfurion tight before he could do anything to protect Tyrande. Malfurion could hear Illidan's voice in his mind as Xavius explained what had happened to him, how he had become the mighty being he was today, how he had delighted in manipulating Illidan after he discovered that Illidan loved Tyrande and that Tyrande loved Malfurion. Malfurion didn't know that Illidan had such love for Tyrande, and even more so, that she had chosen him. It came as such a shock and surprise to him that he forgot all about Illidan being in his mind as well, and the emotions of his twin caused him to rock backwards. Malfurion pleaded with Illidan to come to their aid, that Tyrande was in danger, and that she surely be captured and tortured, but all he felt was contempt from his twin. Surely his magnificent, powerful brother would be able to save Tyrande. After all, she had chosen him over Illidan. Illidan shut his mind from Malfurion, left him and Tyrande to their fates, and the whispers of Xavius did their work. A portal was created by the satyrs, and they were about to drag away Tyrande from Malfurion, but before they could, an arrow suddenly struck Xavius. Chandris Feathermoon, orphaned by the war, was found by Tyrande, who kept her safe. She had kept a close eye on the priestess, and she now came to her rescue. She shot another arrow at the satyr holding Malfurion, and he used the opportunity to break free and fight for the one he loved. The war itself, the armies of night elves and demons, they crashed over their site in the woods. The war flooded in, causing complete mayhem, and in this moment Xavius had one of his minions drag Tyrande towards the portal as he battled with the one who had caused him so much suffering, had delayed their plans time and time again, and now was his chance for revenge. He knew that Sargeras wanted Malfurion alive, but he figured that his brother and his beloved would have to do. But Malfurion was no easy prey. In the end of the confrontation, the young druid unleashed his spell using the wooden broken bolt that was still stuck in Xavius' shoulder. From it, roots began to sprout, feeding from the satyr's very life fluids. He cried out in fury, not in pain, and his blazing hands touched the growing wood, seeking to burn it free. Instead, the satyr only screamed again, for the roots were now so much intertwined with his own system that wherever they felt, so too did Xavius. His claws turned gnarled, becoming tiny branches with burgeoning leaves. The satyr's horns spread out, growing to thick, higher branches from which foliage then sprouted. Xavius was not so much becoming a tree, rather his body was providing Malfurion's creation with the nutrients and building blocks to make itself. "This will not end it between us, Malfurion Stormrage," Xavius managed to cry. "This will not!" And so, Malfurion was able to turn Xavius, former counselor to Queen Azora, first of the satyrs, into a tree. Let's just say that you don't mess around with Malfurion's loved ones. Now, the rest of the War of the Ancients would play out, with the Night Elves and all those that allied with them being victorious. The portal, used to bring the Legion into the world, was turned on itself, reversing it, sending all the demons back to where they came from.
No! This victory will not be ripped from my grasp. I will not return to him in failure. I will not be torn from this pitiful world. No!
Illidan! The well is out of control!
Aye. It's been twisted and turned by too many spells. The fuss we, especially you, made with the portal was too much. The same spell that sent the Burning Legion back into their foul realm now works on the well. It's devouring itself and taking its surroundings with it. Fascinating, isn't it?
Not if we're caught up in it.
The Well of Eternity was out of control, sundering the land and making it look like we know it today. Now, this is not the end of Xavius' story. He might be a tree, but his spirit is still strong, and he would soon find new, dark, powerful allies. However, that's the story I'll save for next week, where we'll talk about the events of the novel Stormrage, as well as talk a little bit about what the future might hold. For now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys, see ya!